Hi there. I just want you to take into consideration this. Let's say you have a phone or a laptop and you're not watching any movie with it or you're not even chatting with it. However, you have about 23 of apps opened on your phone or open on your laptop and the phone is lying down. What do you think will happen? Well, the obvious thing is that the battery will run down. And what is running the battery down? Possibly is because of all the apps that are running behind the scene or running at the background. This therefore leads us to today's podcast or today's episode on emotional overload. I am tired, but I don't know why. Welcome to Streams of Emotions. My name is Moses. I'm your host. You can call me Mo for short, and I'm really glad you are here with me again. So, today, just as I mentioned, we're going to look at emotional overload. Sometimes we're tired, but we don't know why we're tired. You see, the reality is that when you spend an entire day carrying a bag of cement, something extraneous, something that demand a lot of physical energy, we understand that you'll be exhausted, and it's understandable. If you run a marathon, we understand that it can be, it's strenuous, so you're expected to be tired. And also, let's say you engage in exercise, maybe for the first time, or you go to the gym and you did more exercise, or you carry something heavy, or you did something physically. We understand that you can get so much tired. Yes, that is true. But when you switch to the other side, what is emotional exhaustion is different, and it's difficult to know when we get tired emotionally. And one of the biggest misconception we have is believing that tiredness only comes from physical activity. This is one of the biggest misconception that we have. So, most people, just as I said, may be going about doing their own thing. However, the things operating behind the background, behind their mind, are many. Let's say while you are listening to this podcast, you are thinking about maybe unpaid bills. You're also thinking about how your child will be doing okay at school. Maybe you're worrying about work tomorrow. Maybe you are remembering certain uncomfortable conversation that happened yesterday. And you are doing this simultaneously. So it seems as though you are listening to one thing, which is the podcast, that is your phone, is just there. However, there are so many things running at the background of your life, and these things are draining you. Therefore, I have come to the conclusion that sometimes it's not your schedule that is exhausting you. It's not your schedule. We think the many things that we do physically, the many things that we engage in, are those things exhausting us? No. It's everything you are carrying inside your head while you are trying to keep your schedule together. What are you keeping inside your head? What are those little thoughts, little decisions that you need to make, little imaginations that occur to you, the things you think about, and all those things that you think about it unconsciously, those are the things that are trying to drain you or to drain your emotions. So, emotional overload is more common than we think. And just as I mentioned, the psychological term that is used to describe this is emotional exhaustion. And emotional exhaustion comes when we are depleted from carrying stress for a prolonged time, or sometimes when there are certain decisions we need to make and we are not making it, or we've not finalized on that decision, or there is something that we need to do and we're thinking about how difficult that thing will be, and we haven't still handled the situation. All these things are things that can drain us emotionally more than we think. The reality is that it doesn't happen just at the goal, but it's very gradual, and it keeps happening as our lives moves on. Mostly what this does is that it adds up to our cognitive load, and cognitive load is what your mind is able to take at a time. So just as I'm saying with the example of the phone or the laptop, once again, when there are so many things running at the background, sometimes the phone might freeze, or sometimes it might just, it drains the battery very quickly, and that is what happened. Okay, that is what happened. Those difficult conversations that you need to make that you haven't made, those disappointment, those decisions, those expectations, all these are lows that are on the mind. And when it is not handled well, it creates problems and it drains you emotionally. This is how come sometimes you may have enough sleep. You may think you've slept well. However, you still look tired. Why? Because there are things running at your background of your life, and that is draining you emotionally. So it's very much like trying to hear one conversation in a room where there are about 50 people talking at the same time. That is how emotional overload or cognitive load happens. So you're trying to do one thing, but there are so many things happening around you, and this can be draining. And sometimes we take this for granted because it's not a physical strain that is happening to us, it's more cognitive. And sometimes we can't measure what is happening within us cognitively. So, how can we recover from this emotional overload? You see, just as we do to our phones, we have to swipe all those apps off and so that our phone can save some battery. At the end of the day, as much as possible, it is good to sit yourself together and ask yourself what has been running through my mind each day. And if possible, you check it out. Okay, this thing, I'll handle this later. I'll handle that later. When you do that, you are consciously kind of shutting down or closing the apps, the things that are running at the background of your life. And one typical example that I'll give, particularly if you're a Christian, is that you submit all those thoughts. So when it's a particular worry, you said, Lord, I submit this worry to you. I submit this concern to you. And as you do that, you're kind of swiping those application or those background issues off. Another thing is to put them into writing. Think on paper. So you can write your thoughts down. You are not supposed to overburden your mind with so many thoughts. Your mind is supposed to think, not to store just worries and concern. So we can write on the paper what the worries or concern or things running at the background of your life. And as you write on paper, you think on paper, then you can schedule, okay, I'll treat this later, or cancel this. I don't need to focus on this. So you talk to yourself on that. Just doing these two activities can really help. The last one that I may add to it is that have an earnest conversation with someone. Sometimes the things you are worrying about, if you are able to talk to people about it, you realize they are not things to worry about and they are not supposed to be operating your life from the background. So talk to someone. It may be a friend, it may be a mentor, it may be whoever, but find someone to talk with, and that will help with the emotional overload. As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to leave you with these few questions. What emotional weight have you normalized? What emotional weight? Maybe some of you is just about always trying to keep people's matter, always trying to help everyone except yourself. That can be an emotional overweight. And what worries keep running in the background of your mind every single day? What worries? Think about that. What expectation have you been carrying that was not yours to carry in the first place? Listen, when was the last time you allowed yourself to recover? Not because you earned it, but because you are human. When was the last time you allow yourself just to sit down, not doing anything, but to tell yourself, Mo, or just mentioning your name, relax and be cool. Everything will be all right. And because I'm a Christian, I'll add that fact that, oh, God is in control. Everything will be all right. When was the last time you did something like that to yourself? Let us learn to do these things and it will help us with emotional overload. Well, what I'm saying is that your body may ask for sleep, which is good, but your soul may be asking for peace. Learn to listen to both. Give attention to sleep, but also allow your soul, your emotions, to have the needed peace. Thank you for joining me on another episode on Streams of Emotions. Until next time, learn about your emotions, listen to them, and use them productively instead of allowing them to manipulate you. Have a wonderful time and take care of yourself. Bye.